Hey there, new Deltarune. New Deltarune means new Superbosses, which always give cool gear. And now I am going to rank them. Of course, new Deltarune also means new spoilers. Leave if you have not played Chapter 5 yet, or I guess 3 and 4 too if you haven't gotten to them. I'm not one to judge. Just make sure to click all those YouTube buttons on your way out. Right, also, criteria. I am ranking these assuming you are doing every super boss, since if you were going after one, you are probably going for them all. Alright, disclaimers done, spoiler people probably gone, let's get the obvious one out of the way. Number 13, the Puppet Scarf. So, I don't need to explain this one, do I? Even if you're the sort of person who does care about Ralsei's attack stat, Chris and Susie get insane multipliers to their damage that Ralsei just does not get, and this only puts him on par with their base attack stats and drops his magic severely to achieve it. Plus, it requires you to give up a much better piece of gear and has no secondary effects, so this is all downside. Number 12, the Aqua Knife. Second song, same as the first. The only thing this has over Chris's previous equipment is a +2 to defense. Its secondary effect is just an aid for hitting the critical timing with no actual damage benefit if you are already good at doing that. It isn't Chris's highest attack stat. It competes with the other items in the Pick 3 pool in Chapter 5, and it isn't even unique in giving defense on Chris's weapon slot because both the Bounce Blade and the Jingle Blade do the same thing at a cost of 1 less point. Number 11, the Orange Glove. This might be contentious, but this is not good. Yes, it has the highest defense in the game. Yes, +4 to magic in an armor slot is good, but it can only go on Susie, and its secondary effect is terrible. It reduces the cost for her worst spell, and it's not even a helpful reduction since Chris still can't charge it off of 1 defense worth of TP. Plus, even if you wanted a +4 to attack on Susie on an armor slot in Chapter 5, there are other ways to get that also give magic or still good defense, have good secondaries, and aren't blocked to only one character. Number 10, the Devil's Knife. And right back to the trend of bad weapons, though this at least I can see an argument for running. Yeah, its attack sucks by this point, but it's Susie's only option to get magic on a weapon so far, and a hefty boost at that. Additionally, it reduces the cost for Rude Buster, which is helpful for the Roaring Knight and is still good for other fights where attacking is an option. But it's inflexible and competes with another piece of gear that everyone can equip. Still, I love Funny Jester Man. Good on you for staying out of the bottom 3. Number 9, the Justice Axe. Look, I am sorry to do this to you, Suze, but it is just a big number. However, apart from the Devil's Knife, none of Susie's other weapons do anything for her other stats, so biggest number it is, I guess. But hey, Toby, would it have killed you to give this thing a defense stat? You get it from a turtle, it makes sense. Number 8, the Black Shard. Do you think I like doing this? Putting the most aura farming weapon in the bottom half of the list? But like the Justice Axe, this is just a big number, and Chris actually has weapons that give other stats or benefits. However, its secondary effect makes Chris do insane damage to Dark-type enemies, which are the ones more likely to require fighting to defeat. Plus, it's not competing with any other super boss gear aside from the Aqua Knife for Chris's weapon slot, so I just say keep it and throw it on when more Titans show up in Chapter 6. Number 7, the Shadow Mantle. We have reached the midway point of the list, which feels right for this thing. Contrary to all the hype it built up during the Chapter 2 name drop, it's purely a defensive piece of equipment, with its number scaling with the chapter number. Hilariously, this means that the Netsuki hats in Chapter 5 outperform its defense value. Its damage resistances are still killer though, especially against the Knight and Titan fights in Chapters 3 and 4, and against the almost certainly going to happen Knight rematch later down the line. Speaking of, PSA, equip this in the top armor slot when you're fighting the Knight in Chapter 3. Its damage is supposed to be directed towards whoever is holding the Shadow Mantle, but the code is bugged to not work properly if it's in the second slot for some reason. I don't know why. Toby, fix your spaghetti code, please. Number 6, the Devil's Tail. Oh, how the mighty have fallen. Once undoubtedly the best armor in the game, it has now fallen several places, even getting a direct upgrade in Chapter 5. The real killer is the lack of almost any secondary effect, which is what a simple +2 to every stat needs at this point in the game to stay relevant. But hey, you get 6 armor slots, so this might still find uses somewhere down the line. Plus, Chapter 3's boss has a secret use for it, so it might come up again. Number 5, the Green Apron. Now entering the top 5, we see the peak of defensive gear, especially for Chris, who does not care about magic. The last few chapters have been putting a strong emphasis on magic and TP gain in general, and the easiest way to gain TP is defending with Chris, thus passively healing to further improve survivability on top of the damage reduction. With this, Chris can become a full-on tank and can even easily recover HP during normal exploration to save on item use. It is ultimately just defensive play, but Chris doesn't have much in the way of other standout gear without stealing stuff better used by other characters. Number 4, the Seth Specs. Speaking of defensive tactics, these special shades grant some decent defense, but extend invulnerability frames to further prevent damage. And this is independent from granting the single highest magic boost in the game. However, that actually causes a minor conflict, since you don't gain TP from grazing while invulnerable, so using this somewhat reduces your TP gain if you get hit, meaning you have less to use on those spells you equipped this to have the magic stat for. But stats this good and a fairly strong effect are still a strong package, so don't let a little bit of anti-synergy get you down. From here we enter the top 3, and this is gear you should seriously consider even if your current run doesn't have you engaging in super bosses. Number 3, the Blue Shoes. Ralsei's best weapon, hands down. Boosting his magic and defense to the same value as the Seth specs do in a weapon slot, while still having positive effects on his attack stat and removing Pacify's TP cost. Yeah, his attack stat is still going to be pretty terrible, and Pacify is a situational spell, but this is far above anything his other weapons do. At the absolute worst, it's an extra Seth specs for the one character who would want that the most. The only downside is that the Flowery Scarf might get usable later on and doesn't count against the pick 3 pool in Chapter 5, but that is just speculation on future content. Alright, we are at the final 2, and those keeping track already know what is competing and how similar they are. So who will take number 1, the old favorite, or the new rising star? Well, the loser of this race is... Number 2, the Yellow Hat. To start, just look at those stats! Just adding all these boosts together puts it above any gear that isn't character exclusive, and even then, the only thing actually higher is the Black Shard, which pumps everything into attack. The only stuff it ties with is either in this selection pool, or is the Justice Axe, which also dumps everything into attack. While the defense is a bit subpar on its own, the magic stat is the second highest armor boost in the game, and this is the biggest attack boost not on a weapon. Not to mention the fact that this has been ignoring the insane 20% spell boost. Not just damage, this works for healing too. This was made for Susie, rude busting anyone who gets in her way and healing anyone she likes. It's slightly less good for other characters. Ralsei doesn't care for the attack stat, and unless her kit changes substantially, neither will Noelle, but still, that's a lot. So why is this number 2 then? It mostly comes down to timing, since the Chapter 5 item pool is only accessible basically right at the end of the chapter, and the only remaining big fight is highly scripted, doesn't allow for damage as an option, and so it means this will only be useful in chapters 6 and 7, where I'm sure it will be amazing, but we don't really know the specifics right now. Plus, picking it does count against the Chapter 5 selection pool, and you might want other gear more. I don't know what you would want, but you might. The number 1 ranked, however, is usable stupid early and has basically no opportunity cost to acquire. Number 1! The Deal Maker! Attention, valued customer! For this limited time offer, you can receive a very special deal. Simply transmit Cromer to receive short and sweet guide and become a big shot! The Deal Maker is the best equipment money can't buy, and comparable gear only shows up in Chapter 5. and even then, only in the stuff caught up in the pick 3 of 6 game. Yes, its stats are slightly worse than the Seth specs, but it's got better passives, and the fact that it's in this comparison at all is insane when this comes from Chapter 2. For the cyber world, these stats are insane, and unlike Chapter 5, you can get the Dealmaker before you finish most of Queen's Mansion, and then there are 3 other chapters for it to be used in. Even once comparable gear shows up, the defense is still decent, and the magic boost is in a tie for second best in an armor slot, only losing to the aforementioned specs. This is also the only piece of gear in the game with 2 passive effects. The first, and the one displayed in-game, is the money gain, which is helpful for stuff money can buy, like healing items or fusion materials. The second, secret effect, is reducing the damage from cat and puppet attacks. Applications for this are niche after the Spamton fight, and most of those aren't hard fights to begin with, but the standout is the fight against Pink. Helping out in one of the hardest super bosses cannot be underestimated. And the best part, you lose basically nothing by getting this. The Spamton Neophyte itself is pretty easy, and backtracking to his shop for the keygen is worth it anyway for some of his other things that he sells. The only thing you really lose out on is the Puppet Scarf, which is down at number 13 on this ranking, so that's not any real loss. And even if there are a couple of better equipment options in Chapter 5, you have 6 armor slots to fill, so you can just equip one of those and the Dealmaker at the same time. Quite a big shot indeed.